Hello everyone. Now, before we get to this video, I want to shout out Blitzap, whose creators have very generously decided to support my YouTube channel. I know what you're thinking. The league's been out 10 years, you've got your own solution, the websites you go to. Blitz is different, and let me show you why. I recently cast a game where Tarzan popped off on Lee Sin. So, clicking on Lee Sin in the client, you'll notice that Blitzap loads up Tarzan's rune page. Already, you're like, okay, this is nice, tell me more. Blitzap is the only app that can auto-import Tarzan's rune set straight into the client. Loading into the client, you'll notice, opening up the shop, you got Blitz's suggested jungle item set, but there's more than that. These are recent pro builds loaded of very notable players. You can jump in and play Lee Sin like Tarzan does, and I hope this quick run through shows you that Blitzap's doing a little bit differently, and it's seamless and awesomely integrated. You can download the Blitz app at blitz.gg. Links are in the description below. Let's get to it. Final review of the night will be Fnatic versus Splyce. It's been a while. We're back to the LEC. And no surprises that Fnatic are going to be one of the teams to discuss. And looking at Fnatic between spring and summer, it's been kind of interesting to try to compare their numbers here and try to get an understanding of them as a team. You can see how much cleaner they are in terms of how they're playing out the games, but not necessarily has it totally reflected in numbers. Like their goal difference at 15, now they've won a lot more games, so it's likely to be a lot higher. It went from 528 to 1,199. In general, Fnatic have just been a lot more able to play around their mid laner and get value out of Nemesis and no longer be bound to what Caps used to provide the team. And Brox has been able to really be wielded as a weapon. The most curious one to me is Splyce, who are a team that we're reviewing for the first time. A team that I've never really put a lot of time into considering because they've always been kind of hovering around the best of the rest kind of tag in Europe. Good late game team fighting team, but usually pretty unremarkable in the early game. I feel like they only cross my desk when Xerxes is having kind of like an innovative jungle pick, whether it was on Unicorns of Life or moving on to Splyce. But Splyce was always in that realm of kind of gatekeepers. I guess Humble Life would be a kind of a comparison, but kind of a way better Humble Life are Splyce, in that Splyce were always like good at beating teams below them, but could threaten teams above them, but not actually like convincingly take them down. And they often played into the kind of really late game archetype that I think last year especially they moved into. I mean, their average game time is still super long, right? 37 minutes in spring, down to 35 minutes in summer. But I think in general, they've been a lot more intelligent about what they're doing in 2019. You know, with Peter Dunn out and Duke seeming to pick up a lot more of the slack, I think in general, Splyce have been moving towards a more viable strategy in terms of like actually achieving things pre 35 minutes, but not necessarily reinventing the wheel. Like they do fall back into Kobe carries, you know, more often than not. And Kobe has very impressive stats. If you look over Kobe's stats for an 80 carry, you can compare spring and summer, I guess, in this one. KDA was super high in spring, and I feel like a lot more people were talking about upset. But if you look at his CS differential, it doesn't change in terms of percentages, but his overall stats are improving. His goal difference at 15 are improving. I think Norscarin leveling up as a player has unlocked Kobe to be a bit more relevant outside of just I'm ultra farming for the late game, and I think that does give Splyce a weapon. Question in chat, don't you think that Fnatic's doing the same thing as the last bit, but on top side with a better jungle mid synergy? I think even if that's the sum of everything you're saying, that really it's just Broxa and Nemesis have better synergy and they're playing around top side more, I think already that's a huge shift from what they were last year, because you know, they've tried a couple of different identities since Caps left. They tried to play as if it was Caps. It didn't work. They tried to just roll back the reckless hard carry strategy, and that didn't work, didn't really fit the meta in 2019. Bwipo's been on an island, now Bwipo's getting a bit more attention, and that seems to be working a bit better. I think even just mid and jungle are way more on the same page, and they have a plan of attack around top, is already a big shift in style. Very few teams can pull off that level of style change and actually make it stick and come away with a lot of victories, but Fnatic have. And I think just individually, Nemesis has shown way more in summer than he's shown in spring. I actually haven't looked at his stats between the splits, so I'm not sure if it shows up in numbers. What do we see from Nemesis in spring? Very middling stats. Wow. Look at this. Remember, they tried to play around Nemesis at times. They tried to leave him on an island at times. CS differential -1. Goal differential, like, he was doing fine. A lot of this would have been back-ended stats increasing. Nemesis in summer has gone from a negative CS differential to +20. Like, these are caps level stats here. In terms of actually being able to manufacture leads, it's a pretty big amount of improvement in his laning. And I think that the synergy with Broxah is one of the big reasons that we're seeing such a huge jump in these numbers. But also Nemesis just looks way more comfortable in his own shoes. It's so hard to be the next Caps, but it's much easier to be the first Nemesis. And my heart goes out to him because it was really hard to be kind of a one-to-one replacement for Monty, but it's very easy to be Papa. And you kind of have to have a lot of confidence and truly understand your audience to be yourself. And I think Nemesis is finally becoming himself. You know, he is more of a farming player than Caps. He'll never be the sort of player that can dodge out minion waves and go for side lane ganks at weird timings like Caps is known for and still does to this day. But he will also probably never be, you know, up and down like Caps can be on good days and bad days. You know, Caps is a meme for a reason, right? And I think the stability he provides with his own effective champion pool, which to me is very... Like, I feel like Nemesis would have fit into Season 2, 3 League of Legends and been like a lot like Peke, taking teleport mid laners out of meta and farming up on Kassadin and TF. And like, Kassadin to me is the Nemesis champ. Like, he's more of a farmer in general. So he is that reliable map rotation, farm up a big lead mid laner that Caps isn't. And I think Caps is a more unique talent and a more explosive talent, but it's a really big improvement from split to split here. So shout out to Nemesis for finding this many levels of advantage. Meanwhile, Humanoid, who is like kind of that big triplet, right? The new mid laners that came in, Nemesis, Humanoid, and Abbedagge, right? Were the three. And I think Abbedagge has definitely tried to make things happen, but been pretty shaky as a player. Humanoid's numbers are... You know, they're a lot more middling, but at least aggressive. Like the CS, head in CS at 15 minutes is going up. CS differential goes up a little bit. Goal difference changes by not too much. High first blood participation, if you notice, 25% for both. I think in general, Humanoid, I don't have a full opinion on him, but the coolest thing you can point out, like the one stat that really leaps off the page, is that Humanoid has played 18 games in spring for 2 solo kills. And he already has 6, which tells you that he's making things happen. That's pretty impressive, 6 solo kills. Now, I imagine the Kiana is going to be responsible for some of them. I haven't watched this game too closely, but they're definitely doing some interesting stuff around how he's used, and I think he's a super talented player. Like, I definitely heard people that said that Humanoid was the best of the 3 mid laners coming. I think that was Veteran's position from memory, was Humanoid above Nemesis and Abbedagge. But at the end of the day, even if 4 of them were in the Kiana game, which maybe we'll see shortly, he still already had as many in his last split. So at least he's growing into the sort of player he is. I must admit, just watching Humanoid, I hadn't developed a really defined opinion on his playstyle like I had with Nemesis. But at the end of the day, maybe that's just that he was doing a lot of farming. And like Lissandra Duty is not going to tell you a lot about a player, right? All things considered. Like he played a lot of champs without necessarily leaving a huge impression on me. Maybe like Azir wave clear. Like Azir Orion, like wave clearing for Kobe is definitely what I kind of remember from Humanoid in spring season. So he's a player that I'm excited to watch a bit closer in a review like this. Because again, Splyce as a team is one that, as a caster, when you cast games and then you come home and watch, which usually on Friday, Friday night after LCK, I come back and watch LEC, you definitely don't internalize as much about each of the games as when you're casting it. Like, it can wash over you a little bit because you're like playing some TFT or having a drink or paying a lot less attention. Because you're not narrating the game, you don't take away as much about the game. So Splyce is a team that hasn't left a strong impression on me over the years, but they're a team that's looked a lot better this split in general, and so it's one that I want to kind of learn a bit more about. So we look at picks and bans. Remember, they have everything open in Europe. We had a lot of different bans around the world, so only Mordekaiser's global banned. So not Mordekaiser, Karthus' global banned, Mordekaiser and Kiana available. Karma, Yumi, Mordekaiser, red side ban, Kiana left open, which seems a bit bold, but by both teams. Silas jungle banned away, Olaf jungle banned away, Azir banned away. Really peculiar first pick, based on my own biases. In Korea, if you saw Silas ban, it usually means Sejuani first pick. If not, it would be Tahm Kench first pick because you can threaten so many things around the Tahm. Rakan first pick, yes, because Hylissang is a great Rakan player, but prizing ripping away Xayah Rakan over some of the things that are available with Sejuani lanes and also Tahm Kench lanes. We can look at stats and refresh our memory on the Xayah Rakan priority. Most played by Kobe and Noskeren, so that at least applies some realistic reasons to want to contest it. Reckless and Hilly are also known. So they're both Xayah Rakan teams, which is something we kind of knew, but we didn't intuit how hard it is. But it's a very big cost. Like, first pick overall for the Rakan just to get Xayah Rakan seems like a really high cost to make. Also, I'm a big believer in the Xayah power level over the Rakan power level, but I guess Hylissang has one of the kind of arguments that his Rakan is so able to influence the map. He's made so many plays. He can pressure split parts of the map so well. He can backdoor inhibitors against G2 with it, that maybe they're one of the few teams that even with heavily nerfed Rakan, it might be worth first picking Rakan over Xayah. Like, you really need to know the LEC and know Hylissang to understand it. Because on a power budget level, it feels like they got by far the better side of the trade, getting Xayah over Rakan when they're split up. And they also get first priority jungle, which seems to be Jarvan in the LEC recently. So we end up with Ezreal, Rakan, and Twisted Fate. So Ezreal Rakan is a lane that I have been really outspoken as not being a fan of. If you remember, we reviewed an Origin series, the series against G2 when Patrick played Ezreal. I think it was Ezreal Rakan that game. And it was Mithy on the Rakan. And the 2v2s in this lane are really hard to play. It's a really weak lane now that Rakan is kind of at a pretty low power level. But it is obviously something you can try to play super safe on. It's kind of like the world's worst Ezreal Yuumi lane is Ezreal Rakan. But eventually, Rakan has Moby Boots and leaves lane, and Ezreal can farm from safety. So you give up a lot of 2v2 almost any support will be a counter pick to this. You don't have to go super hard into the lane. So I actually don't mind skipping the support pick for a while and just going for a power pick and finding a strong lane against the Rakan later. But definitely Fnatic not playing from bot lane. This seems like a draft that's going to be about leaving bot lane on an island and trying to make plays elsewhere with the Rakan joining up. Maybe around 10 minutes over a Rift Herald. And finally we get Qiyana, which is pretty hype. It's in the Twisted Fate matchup. Nemesis is an 80 Twisted Fate player, so you can go situational answering items into Qiyana. Probably like Phage early, and then Ninja Tabi early in the matchup. It's definitely a kind of a frustrating matchup for TF, whether you go AD or AP. Qiyana can just look for free poke most of the time, and Twisted Fate's wave clear is actually a lot worse than it used to be. Like the last TF meta, we're thinking back to season 4. Though the wild card, red card into wild cards would instant clear a wave. That's not possible with AP builds anymore. And in this particular meta, if you're going AD Twisted Fate, you can keep Qiyana at arm's length with gold card at certain timings, but you can't necessarily control the wave super insanely. Yoon, Siflo, TF counters Qiyana. I definitely wouldn't go that far in terms of counter. I think you can keep safe a lot of the time, but I think counter, like obviously you have some good mechanics out of lane. You have the ability to spot with your ultimate and get through the potential for invisibility on the Qiyana. But I think counter, especially for laning phase control, I wouldn't say counter. Good second round bans though from the side of Splyce. They ban away both of Brox's big playmaking junglers and basically say if you want Sejuani, you can take it, but Lee Sin, Elise, Jarvan, kind of the hardest proactive gankers banned away. The Twisted Fate was probably going to be the bridge in this game and actually allow them to, with Rakan, make for picks. Instead, it's actually a lot of stacking pick power on the side of Splyce, and Rek'Sai's still open. Do you care? I mean, Rek'Sai, I guess Rek'Sai is what you have to kind of sacrifice. Like from the bans, I'm definitely a lot more worried about Lee Sin and Elise on this side, especially because the Elise gives them an AP threat. And they're going to go AP threat with the Gragas instead to just find some AP damage. And Fnatic in the end get kind of an awkward comp where they have some decent engage, but they have to blind pick top lane, which can potentially be answered by a lot of stuff. Their laning phase in the bot side should be weak, whatever AD carry comes in. So it should be at least 2 priority lanes, and then I think Qiyana hits a pretty good spot around like level 6+ in the mid lane to potentially have some playmaking here. So I think Splyce definitely got the better end of this draft in my eyes. Like, Fnatic's comp can do a lot of stuff, but it's a lot more situational. Like, it's like Rakan TF picks someone, Gragas Rakan, Gragas TF. Like, the pick power there is pretty strong, but usually Aatrox heralds a teamfight comp, and I think their teamfights will be really disjointed. Like, they don't fight front to back in particularly strong ways. Meanwhile, the side of Splyce, they've got an assassin, so it's not like they're the world's greatest front-to-back teamfight comp, but Xayah has pass-through damage and can kind of hit the front line, hit the back line, bring back the feathers. They have some dive, they have some front line. Like, it's definitely a lot more balanced teamfight, so favors Splyce in terms of kind of late-game teamfighting phase. And I think in general, they have some nice priority in lanes to get there. So I'm a pretty big fan of what Splyce did in this draft. I was always likely to dislike Fnatic's draft, though, because I'm not a fan of Rakan Ezreal. But maybe I'm just a hater. Maybe I can be made a believer. Now, I must admit, I don't have the world's most knowledge about Qiyana. I've played a couple of games with her in the game, but I haven't played her myself. I ran around the practice tool just trying to understand some of how her mechanics work, so please feel free to correct me in chat if I call out an interaction the wrong way. Obviously, I know the deeper beats of the champion. People in chat mentioning the Poppy top because Chachi's in the game. I think you get a lot more priority with the Nico than you do with the Poppy. Like Poppy has some awkward trades before the trades get better after a couple of items. So I think Nico, just with the ability to free push, to go Twin Shadows and help them with initiation, so it's not just Jarvan initiation. Like an extra initiator for Nautilus and Jarvan makes this initiation almost perfect on the top side. And also finding a source of AP damage is big. Well played by Nemesis here. So for the level 1, they know where Gragas started, and Nico's walked up. Just watching the mini-map here. Early question mark ping on Xerxes' spot, so they were able to read that it was a top side start here. Nemesis plays the right side of the lane, holds the gold card, under no kill threat whatsoever with level 1 humanoid. It's a good read by Fnatic to be able to understand the scenario. And Nemesis went Klepto in the matchup. That's cool. I guess you're just trying to get blue red card poke if humanoid ever walks up to minion wave as a melee champion. Like Twisted Fate wants to run around the enemy team, and then you get picks along the way, either by Gragas or Rakan shadowing the Twisted Fate, or Twisted Fate poured into other lanes. Like that's exactly how Fnatic wins this game. Like this is a sort of chaos draft that we see from G2 pretty frequently. Like this sort of draft there would make sense for them. It probably wouldn't be Aatrox top. Like Aatrox does feel like miscast a little bit in terms of what this draft can do. Decent skirmisher, but of the blind picks in Bwipo's champion pool, maybe it makes sense. But if you blind pick Aatrox, you're definitely getting pushed in by something, right? And that's what we're seeing in top. Watching Brox's path here. Super defensive path from Broxer, trying to secure a scuttle, but also have a pretty clear. So 3 camp clear. He starts his blue buff because there was intel that Splyce would start top side and he didn't want that to be stolen away. Good spot for Broxer. Bwipo's getting back to lane. I guess it's not the worst TP. When is the TP called? I find that Brox is one of the most willing top laners to just take a TP because it was called. He's very willing to come mid lane. Chat's asking about, are they swapping? I'm not 100% clear. I guess they are lane swapping for now. And this is probably fine. I don't know if this was always the decision. My guess is that Bwipo just called it because he had already committed to lane. And Aatrox can potentially find some windows to punish humanoid. Nicely played. Makes me wonder on a play like this. Like, what came first on this play? He's TPing in defensively. They weren't looking for a lane swap at this moment in time. And then from there, I love how Fnatic grow this play. Ezreal finally gets a situation where he's pushed in bot lane. As Hylissang gets his first roam on the map, nice and early, 4 minutes before boots are even done. And they evolve that into a turret dive. It's a sort of play where if this is the LCK, I'm losing my mind. It's such a clean build from the side of Fnatic. Like, Bwipo came in to counter gank, but is here now because he's also pretty good in a gank. They turret dive mid lane, And you watch the end result. Hylissang dies, but actually it's worth it because Humanoid doesn't have TP. So he's going to lose a lot of minion wave control in mid. If Ezreal was being zoned off minions, it's a bad trade. But if you can deny this many minions from a mid lane assassin with Ignite, you actually feel great about it. Like, you lose 1.5 minion waves here as Humanoid. So it's definitely a successful play overall. Against a TP laner, this often isn't worth, but because it's a no TP laner, especially an assassin who wants to snowball, it is worth. They saw one dash was on cooldown as she had picked up the element with her W. Broxah, kind of awkward here. Do we know how this actually went? E and then, yeah, okay. So the Broxah play was actually pretty awkward. And Hylissang, wait, let's check the Guardian Shield. Had it timed out? Wow, the Guardian Shield timed out by 0.1 seconds. Oh, that's unlucky. Wait, something happened there. So Hylissang walked bot lane and died with a flash up. All right, we're going to need some context on that. They're trying to just lane TF into Nico now. Interesting. I can definitely see Aatrox taking good trades against Kiana before 6. So I don't know if this will just keep changing, keep swapping around. They keep trying to find different lane assignments here. In a short lane, Aatrox is going to be a lot safer, obviously. Let's watch the replay of how this happened. Wait, Hylissang died a 3rd time? What? Every time they queue a replay, Hylissang dies. All right. Well. Don't need a death note with Hylissang, apparently. Just show some replays. This is all really, really well played by Splyce. Obviously, this is poorly played by Reckless. He just dies. Sorry, by Hylissang. He just dies. We talked about how Ezreal and Rakan in lane have a lot of struggles. Plays like this that you see between Reckless and Hylissang that we're not going to see the full play of, these sort of plays, you can actually play as Xayah Rakan very easily. Like, what he's doing here is perfect for Xayah Rakan because Xayah's passing damage through this minion and then pulls back, and you have the increased range on the battle dance and you get out. You can make burst trades like this, but without the Xayah part, Ezreal needs to walk up. He can't hit a Q on anything in this area. So the only way this trade makes sense is if Reckless is over here and actually able to Q onto the Xayah. He can't Arcane Shift in because then he's taking minion aggro. They can't actually do anything against the Nautilus. So this is a really bad trade without the Xayah being there to help it out. Without a champion that can actually do damage on here, and Hylissang just dies for it. So after roaming, making that trade is really random. And then the mid lane play, they have a TP disadvantage apart from Reckless having an answering TP, and without full context, Hylissang just dies again, which you shouldn't do. I love the Norscarin decision, though. Straight down bot lane. They get a turret dive down because Nautilus doesn't even need ultimate to have targeted damage. I really like how Splyce played that. Like, Splyce has played this really well. They can also turn it into more. I need to watch a replay of the mid lane play to understand if Hylissang could have lived there or not. I didn't see what happened around the mid lane. I assume we'll get a replay. But the turret dive was great. Reckless wasn't even able to get damage onto Norscarin. I assume that's because he hit his shield. I actually didn't see. I assume there's going to be a replay. Let's watch the replays here. It's awkward. So if Norscarin had have shielded the only auto from Reckless, it would have counted as an execute, I believe. In this case, Reckless wanted to put all the damage onto Xayah because she was obviously the one who was going to do the damage and just died. So Really awkward. But the back timings in this game are awkward because Hylissang has roamed and died twice and then run into lane and died. So I guess we can't be that surprising that things are in such an awkward spot for Reckless, because like a lot of random stuff has happened in the bot lane. Not many games go quite this way. I guess Kiana Jarvan has this synergy with her ult, right? Because it's counted as a wall. So that just means that both of them pressing R is probably super reliable high damage, right, chat? How long have they been out of vision here? Alright, so they fake recall, cancel recall, go into the brush, and then just kill Hylissang. What is he doing? I assume this was all out of vision. That's the only part that makes sense. But I think you have to wait the half second and respect the brush. Like, it's Nautilus with brush control. Like, he could just lead with his ult, and that would be a start. But if you hit the hook and don't react to it, you just die instantly. I see. They were in vision, they even pinged it. Okay, well, that obviously makes it a bit worse. I'm not really sure about that last death. It's so much damage. Damn. Picks up an element, gets to do it again. Burst with the ultimate. That's a lot of damage. Really nicely played. Opens with the root. EQ at the end. Probably would have got the kill even if the Jarvan wasn't there. Really nicely done. Nemesis told Broxer to run or he would get one shot. Well, Nemesis had a good read. Oh. This is a very good interrupt by Bwipo there. If that was intentional, that was pretty sick. One of the reasons that it wasn't a double kill. Would have been a double kill if he didn't pull off that Q there. Nice interrupt by Bwipo. Where was TF? Alright, TF just got called off rotating, I guess. If you notice, TF has no mid lane control. So actually, with no mid prio, both side lanes are under no threat of TF coming in. So Splyce have done a really good job in the early game. And this is like an early game like this where they've been able to punish Fnatic multiple times, especially Hylissang as he's roamed around. But also have just been so decisive about hitting side lanes, the turret dive, like the Nautilus pick has looked awesome from Norscarin. Like, this is a really good look for Splyce. Like, 7 kills in 11 minutes for Splyce obviously goes against their slow late game reputation, but I feel like we've seen more of this sort of early game from Splyce as the year has gone on. Like, they're growing into their spots, just like we talked about Nemesis on Fnatic. I think Humanoid is fitting in over time on the side of Splyce. I think overall, like, this sort of map movement is a really good look. Like, this Splyce is one that I am excited to track. The previous Splyce where they farmed it out like they were Gen G, like, that was never a style that was going to work against other teams. Like, I think the famous story from Fnatic was they just thought that they would do it like Splyce do it, but better always, because they had Reckless at the end of the day. Let's watch the pro view of this. So it gets the element, E, Q. Nice and easy, right? Didn't even have to reset. That's the crazy part for me, right? Q for harass. Reset on Q. Has the W for the root. E, Q, hit, alt, S a lot of damage. I assumed there was a reset in there somewhere, but they didn't even need one. Like, the fact that he left damage on the table and not needing the reset is pretty insane. So around their Kiana, they'll be pretty confident in making plays happen. But it's still, like, we already talked about how Fnatic didn't pick 5v5. They picked skirmish, right? As uh-oh. So Nautilus walks through the Rift Scuttle. It's not an abysmal TP, but it's not a smart one. Like, why not the turret? Definitely really wanted that to be the turret and not the minion there. And it's really easy to snowball with this comp, right? The Kiana is so strong at catching people in transition. This is a whole one passage of play, too. So the Fnatic comp, as we outlined, is very much about kind of catching people 2v2. Now, Nemesis is dead, so a lot of the catch pressure is gone. But the fact that Splyce is winning this hard in moments like this is really big for how this game plays out. Like, Kiana gets to walk up and blow people up because, you know, that's what she does. And they're getting these catches everywhere. And even though there's a good moment in the bot lane for Chachi, Reckless's TP is still on cooldown, and he's not going to be able to contribute here, so they still get to chase down Whippo. So when one passage, they get 3 for 1 and Infernal Drake, you would assume. It's close. So when you see... Oh, that was really well played by Kobe on the ult there. When you see plays like this, where Kobe's able to wave clear top and they gain this much injection in gold, and it feels not 100%, but likely that they'll have some teamfight advantages here. They've got the true frontliners in Nautilus and Jarvan. Meanwhile, there's nobody who can frontline on the side of Fnatic. Definitely don't count Aatrox there. Like, Splyce have just been super decisive about when they've chosen to make plays, and Fnatic, Brox is trying to react. It's happened a few times. Reckless often does this when the skirmishes don't go the way of his team. He tries to just get his items on time, so he's able to at least be fighting as the game goes on. Oh, Kobe died. Let's go back. So the easy pick onto the Nico with the ultimate there, and Kobe doesn't have ult. Where did he come from? He's just wave clearing in mid. Wow. This whole play is very interesting. These sort of proactive shot calls have kind of been something that I really think that Fnatic has pulled away from G2, because, you know, they were pretty far behind the tempo of this game, but they make a lot of quick, smart decisions. We can catch Nico with TF ult into Colbe's too far up with no Featherstorm into Noscaren's trying to stop him from moving, and Humanoid has no TP. Just netted 3 assertive quick kills with the sort of conditional information that if you didn't know, you couldn't make plays that aggressively. Like, the amount that Fnatic just shift the game in this point is actually huge. Watch this point. Like, Splyce is ahead 1,800 gold from 8 kills. So it's not the most for kills, right? 6 kills would be 1,800 gold if there was no bounties. But they have 2 Infernals, so that's obviously quite a lot of lead. But Fnatic, purely from being opportunistic from behind and understanding that the win conditions of their comp is to find a lot of catch and a lot of picks with TF and the gang, and calling the right targets, they stack together shutdowns and actually end the play ahead in gold. Like, watch the play at 15 minutes. They're ahead in gold after being 1,800 gold down. It's a 2,200 gold turnaround, plus they have Rift Terror control. Optimistic. Kobe should never got caught in there. Definitely it was a really big mistake from Kobe. He didn't have situational awareness. He was focused on the mid lane and thought that after the Nico was caught that he was free to push out one more wave. Kind of like Reckless when he was caught on turret. Like, the one more wave syndrome for both these 80s carries have caught them. It's still 2 Infernals, so like, even though it's equal gold, you still like Splyce's spot. But as a team that was losing in skirmishes but picked mostly for only skirmish, it felt like Fnatic's only win condition was gone because they just were behind in items. So for them to bring back the gold when they did, and with a lot of question marks about where the game is going for them, like, it was then or never. Like, there was a real chance that if Splyce didn't give over those 3 to 4 kills, this could have been kind of like a 28, 30-minute close for them. But the game is extended because Fnatic got some pretty important item completions to stay comfortable, and now they do still have the ability to outplay with fast mobility from a TF Rakan, that if they didn't have their items, like, maybe plays like this can never happen. Well played. Like, Fnatic get the sort of picks that are possible from their comp, as we know, but if you look at items, like, they're finishing important items with the gold they just picked up. Let's look at the item points when the previous picks happened. So we're seeing 2 item Ezreal, Trinity Force, almost Nashor's. When the previous plays are happening, what do we got? We got Iceborne Gauntlet, Trinity Force, and not much else, right? The shift from now to the next successful pick is actually a lot. Like, that's a lot of items different. He's added Stinger and also Boots 2 and also Fiendish Codex. Everyone else's builds have powered up significantly from the Snowball Gold, and that means that the flank play is actually successful. Like, you can't make those plays even if you're in the right place, right time, if you don't have items. Brock's a wave clearing alone. No. Alright, Broxa didn't do... I think Broxa played too much TFT and didn't look into Kiana, because these are not, like, amazing outplays from Kiana. She's just blowing up a squishy frontline mage who's not face-checking. Who's face-checking everything. Not even tabbies. Like, of course not, because he's trying to go double pen from the jungle to do damage, but damn. Let's see how many abilities he needed this time. Let's watch. E, Q, W, Q. Wait, was the R even necessary? Like, he overkilled Gragas by probably like 500. He probably could have done another 500 damage to him there without even breaking into a sweat. Why did they show that Ezreal ulti? I was just watching it thinking it would show something. So what starts this play? They see the Nico walk in, and Nico's a lot more accountable against a Twisted Fate comp, right? Because Destiny gives you so much against her. Under turrets, you can see how Fnatic could win the game. So we're talking about how we don't like them in team fights. Oh. That's a lot of damage. One thing we can see in some of these skirmishes is the fact that Ezreal TF have a lot of range when it comes to poke especially. And that's not something that's available to Splyce, right? Because the Qiyana's an assassin. The Nico is much more about walking around and pushing and looking for plays with ultimate rather than necessarily trying to match poke for poke. So if you get Baron on Fnatic's side from a good pick from, say, a Destiny, Splyce doesn't deal with Baron that well. Zaya's pretty good. Nico's okay, but they're definitely not an S+ tier Baron team at dealing with Baron if you're playing 3 lanes. And that's something for us to remember, is that Baron should be really high value for Fnatic. Same story for Splyce, of course, but you always want to look for a way that a team would be competitive, and that look to me on the Fnatic side needs a Baron. I think it returns quite a lot of their side lane pressures. Yeah. Shirelius Rakan. Looking for his side lane plays. Was probably considering another item, and then that was the only kind of mobility item he could fit in. Righteous Glory is one that people have used before. No Zeke's Convergence for Ezreal. I guess it's not Xayah, so you have a bit more freedom to go into a different approach there. Classic Fnatic. Someone is always in this bush. Good catch here onto Qiyana. Really well played. And the shutdown goes to Reckless as well. Qiyana was making a one-person invade play. Like, they had no need to clear that control ward. They already have in a turret, so the value of clearing that control ward is almost 0. You clear that control ward, yes, Qiyana could walk through here, but you're still going to be spotted by a control ward there. You're not threatening under a structure, so there's so many different ways for your team to disengage. Humanoid was epically greedy to try to get that ward, even though it wouldn't have changed Splyce's position in the game at all. And now just Fnatic are casually in a gold lead, right? Only the Infernals are keeping Splyce ahead. He was only thinking about killing because he already had 7 kills at the time, but wasn't really thinking about the potential cost of his play, only the potential kill that he might pick up. I mean, chat's talking about only the Infernals, and obviously it's a lot of value on a kind of, I guess, 3 damage dealer comp. It's not like Jarvan's doing damage. It's a very tanky Jarvan build, but it's only the Infernals because Splyce could have been mega far ahead in this game. If they hadn't have been caught around Baron and then further caught in mid, the future attempts from Fnatic would have just been kind of hard inting from the side of Fnatic. But because they had extra items from getting those successful ganks, other things were possible for Fnatic that shouldn't have been possible. We talked about getting Baron too low. It got below 5,000 and no TP from Bwipo. A lot of confidence there. Splyce doesn't deal with enemy jungler trying to contest that well. Really, the only person who can is Noscaron. Nicely played here. Fnatic played this so well. You get to cheat. Like, this sort of Baron start and bait works against almost every champion, but not Twisted Fate, because Twisted Fate can press Destiny, and it doesn't matter that you didn't put the vision down. So Qiyana goes from patrolling for a gank into, oh crap, I guess I should probably help DPS the Baron. So alone, Twisted Fate gets insane value in this play. One of the few champions that can contest Baron this late is TF. Then they walk up and they can put down vision for Aatrox to TP to if they need to. They know that Splyce are a super conservative team, so they're not a team that's very likely to look for a 50-50 Baron. It starts to releash. They continue to go in. They don't call on the TP. This is really solid Baron buff baiting. Hillsong's on a ward, and on another ward here. Right? He's even hitting a ward to make this play happen. But the moment that Ezreal catches the back there, it's well played by Hillsong. You know, like, he doesn't lose anything looking for exit kills here. Like, Reckless and Hillsong are really smart. They get an ult out of the Nautilus. They get a kill on Nautilus. It was really well played from them. Really good Baron contest, because no one wastes a skill on the side of Fnatic. They use the, they use the Twisted Fate ulti, the Destiny to check. They use the Ezreal ult to spot a back timing, and then they use the quickness in order to get the final pick. But that's super clean. I love to see I love to see fundamentals like that, because so many teams struggle around Baron, and Fnatic's fundamentals are strong. I feel like Kobe's been caught farming a lot. It's a really interesting play, because Splyce are positioning for if they get face check, and Fnatic want to play around their vision. All their vision's to the left side, so they have no reason to go to the right side, and they get to make just a front door gank against Kobe. Just stuff like this is so cool. This exact play here. Because they see Kobe going mid lane. They know he's going to wave clear. Fnatic have no interest in face checking a Qiyana. She's not going to be in the mid lane, and all their vision's left side, so there's actually no risk. Like, if you don't have vision here, and you don't have vision here, then you're just kind of milling around here scared. You're never going to go all in onto Xayah. But because they have perfect vision on this side, they know they can run straight down the mid lane and try to get something here, or at worst, push the minion wave in all the way down. And, Aatrox approaches for a flank, and they create a pincer out of a comp that where Splyce is looking to pincer. This is cool. This is the sort of thing where the only answer to it would be a lane ward. It's probably, we should see if anyone has a ward. No one on the side of Splyce has a ward. In a perfect world, Xerxes would put a ward around here so you could see people going that way and people going down that way. Because they don't have this ward, they actually end up forking themselves. The famous, in Soviet Russia joke, In Soviet Russia, road forks you. They actually end up flanking themselves in the play, and that's why Kobe just gets completely collapsed on. Interesting. Fnatic play to the information they have at the time really well. That's a cool look. That's a top team look from Fnatic. Fnatic know what they know and know what they don't know. And that so far, in two comps that right now are evolving into kind of pick wars and skirmish wars, is helping them a lot. Like, their fundamentals are, to me, the thing that separates the two teams. Play towards your vision and also to what your comp does. And that's what Fnatic's been doing most recently. Piggyback ganks. Always love these. 3 TPs on the map, so you have to assume there's going to be backup. The long range here is something that we brought up as being relevant a little bit earlier, but they're using it so smartly. You can tell that this is Fnatic's new norm. Nemesis, I think, Twisted Fate, Kassadin, like, he's really good at split lane pressure. Like, he's not going to get you solo kills in lane, but he's really smart about playing the map, knowing the right amount of minion waves to push and backing away at the right times. And that's sort of guerrilla warfare. Like, that's what I remember Fnatic. Like, Fnatic is a different thing to a lot of people. Like, a lot of people, I imagine, watching today, when they think of Fnatic, they think of Caps. The slightly older generation, they remember Huni and Reign over Fnatic. But the Fnatic for me was Peke Fnatic, you know? Peke and Soaz playing side lanes and teleport backdooring in a time when that wasn't normal, when that was a lot more rare. And I feel like Nemesis is bringing me back to that type of Fnatic that won through guerrilla warfare. Like, when I played Dota before I played League of Legends, the backdoor victory was, like, dishonorable. Like, you weren't supposed to do that. People in pubs would always complain about any sort of backdoors and stuff like that. Like, it wasn't seen as, like, a proper way to win. But that was Fnatic's way. Like, they were really good at running double mage, double assassin, Ahri, double TP comps, and no one else did that. And it's become the general League of Legends meta. And Nemesis kind of reminds me of Peke back in those days. All right, let's watch this play. Who's trying to do what here? So they're looking to once again kill Kobe, whose ult is up, we should mention. But they don't have eyes on Kiana this time, do Fnatic. The moment they see gold card, it's not the longest cooldown, but there is a window here, and damn, does Nemesis die fast. Let's watch this one. Flash R. Yeah, just insane damage on the other side. So this time Kobe is under turret, right? And there's a lot more straightforward nature to the play that's happening. So Kobe actually gets value out of his Featherstorm. And for once, Fnatic doesn't hold all the cards. They actually over-pursue to make that play happen. Should be a free Baron. They'll say that EQ in. They'll get the Baron. There you go. Another momentum change in this game. Fnatic had found a really good footholding in the game. If they had kept playing their style and not grouped up, I think they would have continued to find leads. But I was focused on the left side of this play, just impressed by the Kiana. Now just watch the right side here. Oh. Man, you could not have ulted at a more perfect time to not get charmed at the start. If he ults 0.1 seconds later, he gets charmed and never gets to ult. So with no cleanse, that was pretty impressive. Huh. All right. I don't know how that happened. Huh. Interesting. I missed that play. Also, the Kiana Ash Sun's Reckless there too. I missed that. Oh, damn. Man, that travels so far. That's stupid. What the hell? Why does that happen? Why is that an interaction in the game? Holy moly. Let's watch the picture-in-picture here after this play ends. I think this is just TF has 40% and just gold cards to death. Yeah. Kiana could have disengaged here, but she just all-in thinking that she would one-shot, and Nemesis was tanky enough to not die. That was an unnecessary death from Humanoid for sure. You can literally ult the whole blue side jungle with a well side J4 plus Kiana ult. Great. I didn't know about that. Interesting. It seems like it traces over the walls as if it's... The only indicator I can remember that's similar to that is the E from Talon traces over the walls that you can and can't jump over the second time, and it feels like those are the same tracings that that Kiana's ult kind of follows or obeys. And it can be some pretty insane AoE there. Good call, Twitch chat, on catching that stun. That's another reason that Splyce didn't take more casualties in the mid lane. Nemesis, shout out to Nemesis, by the way. Very shallow teleport this time after teleporting onto the mid lane. He's... Yeah, he actually YOLOs into Humanoid. Oh, missed ult. Wow. Nemesis knows his limits here. Impressed. It's Q. Good point. Okay. There you go. That's my mistake. So R is on cooldown here, right? Okay. R is on cooldown. This is the grass Q. I guess the theory is that if he doesn't have ult, there's no kill pressure. Must be that. Interesting. There you go. He hits the Q. In my mind, it was an R, so it must have fizzled. That makes more sense. Cool chat. Kiana looks very ult dependent. Yeah, I mean, that's a fair point. If ult is up there, he has enough damage to kill him if everything lands, right? That's for sure. But, I mean, you build so much CDR that the ult being... like mid-range cooldown doesn't really matter if you have as much CDR in the build as you do here. Every Norscaran hook before was god tier, right? And like he gets this one on Reckless, but this is the one you don't want to hit. Pulls a lot. So... Oh, the back being interrupted, that's so big. I don't know if that was worth it, but, I mean, it gives him a pretty safe exit. Featherstone cooldown, sort of relevant, sort of not. Splyce really wants to play 3 lanes with the Baron there. They only get to play 2, so Nautilus dying basically relieves all of the pressure from the Baron buff. You can see that with only 30 seconds left, they weren't even able to break anything. Like 1800 gold lead is only mid lane in a turret going down. Is a really small Baron here. So the fight for the Baron has meant that the later reset, they've had no ability to actually play the map from it. Which has to be frustrating. I'm well, thanks. Big boy. Not going cleanse this game. Real big boy here from Kobe. Means he has a lot of damage, and if they ever ignore him at the start of the fight, his outplay with just Featherstorm is huge. Is there a Mikhail's on Nautilus? I wonder what's better, Righteous Glory or Mikhail's for Norscaran. Obviously, you scale really nicely on the Righteous Glory with the extra health and the health scaling on the shield from Norscaran, but Mikhail's will be so big in this game for Kobe. I can't decide. Finally got the QSS, but getting a 32-minute QSS in a game like this, you have to be so on point as Kobe. Still, with the game even, outside of a single Infernal Drake, we know it's largely, if it's going to be about team fights, we're going to stick with our original analysis. We like Splyce and the comp they've put together. So trying to watch how Fnatic will find creative ways to continue to make this game about picks and the supreme mobility of Rakan, Twisted Fate, Gragas, Ezreal. Like those guys are some of the most maneuverable guys, champions on the Rift. No wards on the map at all, apart from 2 really shallow control wards from Fnatic. Like, Fnatic want to make this game about pushing down lanes. 4-1 is probably the way they want to go. Just like they did before, where they didn't get caught in the jungle here, they want to stick to what they know. Only play towards their control wards. How many do they have extra in the inventory? They have 5 control wards in inventory, and they just want to go safety first, sweeper first, and make sure they can't be face-checking a Kiana at any point. So they're trying to make this game super simple. Splyce will take a team fight, but they know that Fnatic won't push into one lane. And they actually just blow up Bwipo between lanes. How does Bwipo get there? He just gets spotted on a ward. So Bwipo has no reason to come in as aggressively as he does. Now, obviously, it's not super aggressive. He's coming through his own jungle. But Fnatic, I mean, they have such middling... This is like a product of vision, right? Because at this point, his only 2 control wards are here. So you might think, oh, they've got vision bot side. But it's so shallow that they have no idea what's happening around here and obviously no idea above them. That if you don't come through the lane like the team did, you are at risk of being caught. And that's what happens with Bwipo. A little bit on the unlucky side, but I think it was unnecessary for him to come in that proactively for a flank. They don't have the vision to play a flank game. Especially as Baron is going to spawn. The last part makes it a lot more significant. Without Baron, it's kind of like, eh. But with Baron, it's too proactive. All the TPs are up. Good Baron. Good Baron control from them. Vizicachi on the spotting duty, Humanoid on spotting duty. Both of them have interrupts and burst damage to get the smite coming in. They got control over the pit. They had visions placed there before. Really solid setup from Splyce. Nice to see. That's a part of the game that we weren't worried about. They'll be able to pull off the vision side fine, but we've definitely seen peaks and troughs. Like, Fnatic had to really fight their way back into this game. I contend that if those picks topside hadn't happened earlier, this could have been a pretty straightforward 27, 28 minute victory. But because those counter picks allowed them to extend the game as much as they did, like, Fnatic have been able to just run down lanes, push strongly, and see what comes of those decisions. And it's gotten a lot of CS onto TF and Ezreal especially, but it doesn't allow them to just win team fights straight up, like we mentioned. I feel like if they had gone Nico here, Splyce would have been put into a really awkward spot. Like, if Fnatic had gone Nico, then I wonder what Splyce would have responded with. And it certainly wouldn't have had priority like they ended up on, because very few champions have priority on Nico. But blinding the Aatrox didn't help them win fights and has made them a little bit awkward when it comes to side lanes. Splyce would have picked Kennen. That's fair. I think Nico beats Kennen straight up in a big way because you have a lot more harass than Nico. So then Cannon. How's it start? Nico pushing in Vision. Everyone else doing their thing. Damn, you know you win team fights confidently when 4v5 you win the team fight. Okay, it's 4v4. Ezreal's walking down. Let's be fair where we want to be fair. Fnatic tried to find a pick without Ezreal there. Yeah, Hillsong went in when Reckless was definitely not on the same page. Didn't really need to make that play. Like, Hillsong has made plays like that many, many times and won a lot of games, but like his damage wasn't there. Like, they need the Ezreal there desperately. Yeah, 2 inhibitors. Good punishment for it. Easy Elder. No problems picking that one up whatsoever. High value Elder too. Huh, full ability power on the ye old Ezreal. That's fine. They're low on AP damage, so I don't hate it. Reckless wanted his Rabadon's buy, and the rest of the team wanted to contest Elder. When would that have been? I mean, he already had Rabadon's, right? So. Oh, wait, never mind. Let's go back to that. Further back. Ah, okay. So that's just a disagreement between Reckless and Fnatic on how to play this out. Because Reckless on a completely different wavelength here. Like, the other 4 members walk up to, like, wham someone on the way in, and Reckless had no interest in fighting for this Elder. It's conspicuous how far out of position he was in that situation. Strange. Let's try and look at it from Reckless's perspective. I don't like the chat's obviously dunking on Reckless with the usual old like KDA player, etc. Let's try and understand the play and see if there's any kind of understanding as to what's happening here. So TF ults trying to catch Kiana. They don't get her. She has to flash defensively. As Elder is about to spawn. Hillsong can take over a brush. And we pull away from this play. So from Reckless's perspective, all right, we got Kiana's flash. I'm a bit safer if I want to contest. Splyce walk up. Vizitachi has TP. We can defend this from the bottom side should be the call here. Like, there's no risk for Reckless to walk all the way down the bot side because Hillsong is in a brush controlling it. And the fight happens and they just die. I just feel like there should never be a game where Reckless is mid lane and everyone else is pushed up. Like, you have to decide. You can't be half in or half out. Like, that's really, really... like from the perspective of what we're watching, there was a safe way for Reckless to get all the way around to bot side. You knew you weren't going to be assassinated by Kiana because she had just flashed defensively, so she's not in your jungle looking to pick you. That really did look like 4 people spam pinging in one place and the other player not going there. Like, that's actually really... It's a level of disconnect you very rarely see at the pro level. And I can't speak to, like, what is right or wrong without, like, hearing the comms. Like, it's at minimum a miscommunication, but obviously the worst of that is that it's some sort of, like, personality clash, right? But never should Hylissang be controlling the bot side with a control ward ready for a flank pick with Reckless passively farming in mid lane. Like, that's just never should happen. Very bizarre. All right, instantly killed Nico. That's pretty big. Oh, what a sick cask. Walking up for those orders. Oh, what a cask. Definitely Brox's best moment of this game. Brox has had a really hard time trying to get much going this game because he didn't have any lane priority to speak of to gank around. It's so hard to play Gragas in games like this. Nashal's Tooth Infinity Edge. Okay. 40% CDR build. Let's watch it one more time. Give me the cask. Beautiful. Just beautiful. They got the Aatrox ult. They can wait that one out. And then Splyce should easily win team fights. So easy cleanup here. Let's watch the replay at the start of the fight. Where's the R? Oh, look at the balance level. Beautiful. Yeah, I can see why the Jarvan priority was so high, because Jarvan Kiana is pretty dirty. The amount of extended walls it gives you. Wow. There's one I'll have to mention on cast. And that'll be GG. Really intriguing game between Fnatic and Splyce. Like, I wouldn't call it a great game, but interesting. Because it actually raises a lot of questions for Fnatic. Like, I thought the draft left them with a lot to do. Like, I thought that was a pretty tricky draft to execute. But the counter punches they had in the mid game, where they caught people around Baron buff, were, to me, evolved Fnatic. You know, the fact we're seeing in summer, where they do have counter punches that aren't just let's just farm and scale and hopefully someone can carry in the late game with 400 CS. Like, that was a good look for Fnatic. But then how those moments of good synergy, like Hylissang and Reckless chasing down the further kills around that area, were in the same game as they showed a lot of negative synergy around the Elder. So it was kind of a scattered performance overall between how things happened, how things went in this game. And so to fully pick up the pieces and have a full idea of where Fnatic are at, like, this could just be a one-off game where things were a little bit off, or it could herald some worrying times going forwards from Fnatic. I will say that I'm, again, impressed with how they picked themselves up, but I thought Splyce had a pretty consummate early game. Like, I was very impressed with their map movement to open up the 11-2 kill score that it was at the start. They were really on point with using their resources. The Nautilus play was very strong. Every single Hylissang roam was both anticipated and dealt with. So Hylissang was like basically feeding in the early game. The moment that Rakan first pick happened, the Xayah came out, like, you can definitely say the Xayah was pivotal in this game compared to what the Rakan provided Fnatic, because they really struggled to get that one going. So at the end of the day, like, really impressive stuff, I think, from the side of Splyce. And I can't rate the Qiyana performance. I can enjoy the Jarvan-Qiyana synergy. Someone in chat saying, if you watch Mic Check, only Nemesis knows what Qiyana does. I think that's definitely very real. The scuttlebutt from Qiyana from solo queue was actually pretty minimal. Like, when I asked Korean pros about Qiyana, they were very muted about her compared to very, like, wow, Mordekaiser is overpowered. So it's only all the momentum the pro games have shown that have really increased the Qiyana kind of understanding. Because, like, she looks super, super, like, overtuned in some of these games. And the R is just such an insanely large AoE when it's around the right terrain that probably needs to be looked back at if it's going to have that sort of AD ratio. But it does feel like Qiyana has crept up on a lot of people, including myself, in terms of power. And now it's, you know, I assume we're going to see a lot of it in the LCK. Seems pretty crazy. Yeah, I've seen some of Caps's Qiyana recently. It does look really strong. Yeah, interesting. I also think that the only thing that makes Qiyana overtuned is her R. I think that the QW interaction with how much base damage and scaling it has needs to be looked at. I think this is going to be one of those champions where you miss R, get all-ins, kind of like Aurelia was at maybe a year ago. I don't like assassins that can miss an ability and then still be fine, especially if it's their ultimate ability. But I feel like that might actually be pretty relevant for Qiyana's power level right now. Now, that's only my suspicion. I need to see more of it at the pro level to really understand it. But looking at how her, you know, QWQ combos and her passive interact, it seems like she has one rotation or one spell rotation burst on a lot of people. So that to me seems pretty impressive from her. But let's close it out there. I think Fnatic's first loss when it comes to domestic split. So let's wait and see. There's a lot of rumor and innuendo about where Fnatic are going, but they were definitely aggressively on and off the same page in the same game there, which Splyce, to their credit, were able to pick up and make the right decisions. And I think Duke actually pulled off a really strong draft here. I definitely heavily preferred that. And you sum it all together, and even though there were some of those moments of brilliance from Fnatic, Splyce were definitely on the whole the better team. So shout out to Splyce. First review from them looking good. And I'll definitely be watching them closer moving forward, because they did a lot right in this game. And their setups in particular around Baron were really on point. So guys, that's the final VOD review of tonight. I'm going to take one final break to go to the bathroom, get some cold water, answer your questions, and then we'll call it a stream. So if that's the end of your VOD review watching, then thank you very much for tuning in. But I've got some time to answer some questions before we call it a night. So thanks very much for watching.